What's up, YouTube? This is Too Raw for TV. All right, so before I get into this video, I want to give a shout out to the brother JJ Phantom for the donation to the channel via the Cash App. Salute to you for showing love to Too Raw for TV. All right, so let's talk about Klay Thompson. All right, Klay Thompson, of course, won 4 NBA championships with the Golden State Warriors. And of course, he was a member of the Splash Brothers. Of course, that was a play on the old Bash Brothers moniker that Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire received back in the 80s and early 90s when they played with the with the Oakland Athletics. Klay Thompson is a guy that did not necessarily fill the stat sheet. Let me just get this out the way. He was not a great rebounder. If anything, the only rebounds he really corralled are either long rebounds that came to him, or the occasional offensive board, very, very occasional offensive board. If anything, he was more inclined to grab a defensive board and dish it to the ball handling player for the Warriors when they went on offense. He was also not a guy that racked up assists, and that should explain itself because he was a catch and shoot guy. Offensively, he was an off the ball guy, so he didn't have the ball in his hands a lot. Therefore, he's not going to rack up a lot of assists. He was a really, really good defensive player, but he did not have a lot of traditional defensive statistical output like steals and blocks. But what he did do was he was very, very good at getting to certain spots on the floor to limit the opposing offensive players' efficiency. He was good at staying in front of his man and causing a lot of issues. The few steals he did get were more or less, strips, I think, but from watching him play. But, look, over the last several years, since he has been, I would say, traded to Dallas, and before that, not traded Dallas, signed as a free agent to Dallas. And then before that, came back from injury after 2019 in the NBA Finals from the ACL injury. And then while he was rehabbing from the ACL injury, he tore his Achilles, which led him to be out for something like 941 days, if I remember that statistic correctly, right? But since his Splash Brothers days, he has been kind of phased out when it comes to Warriors lore. And by that, I mean, yes, Steph Curry is the greater player. I don't argue against that. But it seems like he's not getting his just due anymore for what he accomplished as a Warrior. Without Klay Thompson, Steph Curry or the Warriors would not have won those championships. Steph Curry, people love to say that Michael Jordan did never win a championship without Scottie Pippen. Well, the same could be said about Steph Curry. He never won a championship and never appeared in the NBA Finals, I believe, without Klay Thompson. But, this started, I think, the dynamic started shifting with them a bit after the offense began to involve Curry more and more after Steve Kerr became the head coach. And, it's always also been this weird Cold War between Curry fans and Klay Thompson fans, right? Um, it's always just been this weird thing where Curry fans always like to take a dump on Thompson fans. It just never made any sense, man. They don't like to see Klay Thompson get any praise. They felt like Klay Thompson was overrated, et cetera, right? So now, since Klay has left, you see all these other guys get brought up as the other piece that could lead to a Warriors title. First, it was, briefly Buddy Hield, right? But Buddy Hield has not been as dominant or even as consistent as Klay Thompson, who, interestingly enough, was seen as inconsistent. Jimmy Butler had a lot of noise behind him, but Jimmy Butler at this point of his career, I think age has caught up with him. So I don't think the Warriors are ever going to win another championship, right? And then some of it too was the acquisition of Kevin Durant. When Kevin Durant signed as a free agent in 2016, it changed the dynamic from being Klay and Steph to being Kevin Durant and Steph, right? Or Steph and Kevin Durant. And Klay started being seen more as, a role player, which wasn't the case. You know what I'm saying? But people forget what Klay could contribute, man. First of all, like I said before, Klay was essential to the Warriors' success because in a league that had tremendous ball handlers, great perimeter offensive players, Steph wasn't stopping those guys on defense. Okay? As good a defender as Draymond Green can be, and he could, and it's a league with a lot of switches, right? Players are switching, whatever, right? So I get sometimes Draymond is guarding perimeter players, but Klay was frequently guarding the other team's best perimeter players, right? And was very successful. And at one point in time, he was one of the top two-way players in the league. Now, he wasn't in prime Kawhi Leonard's class, but he was amongst the best two-way players in the league. Look, in the games, this is the production that he put up so far in his career. I just want to put up some notable stats for him. Now, with the Dallas Mavericks, his numbers are very pedestrian. He's appeared in 72 games. He's shot a career low 41.2% this past year, but he did shoot 39.1% from three. And I think probably for the highest ratio of his career, the highest percentage of his shot attempts have been threes, which is probably why his field goal percentage has dropped so much. He did average 14 points a game, and he shot 90.5% of career high from the line. As a matter of fact, since he's come back from those devastating injuries, he hasn't been the same guy, but the production is still there. 18.2 points per night, just under 30 minutes a night, 250 total regular season games, 42.8% from the three-point range, from the field, 39.6% from three-point range, and 90.4% from the line. So he's actually been an improved free throw shooter since he's come back. He was already a great free throw shooter, around 85% when he was playing before the injuries. Now he's over 90%. So he's been, although the amount of times to go to the line is very minimum, but still. In the playoffs, since he's come back, he's appeared in 35 playoff games, and he's averaged 36 minutes a night. So that's pretty high, considering that he's on the backside of his career, and we're in an era where the pace is so much faster. He's averaged 18.9 points per game in the postseason since he's come back. He's shot 41.4% from the floor in the postseason games since 2021. And he shot 37.8% from three-point range, right? For his career, he's appeared in 865 regular season games, averaging 19.1 points, 3.5 rebounds, 2.3 assists, but 45.1% from the floor, and 41.1% from downtown and 86% from the line. One of the reasons why I think his field goal percentage is overall higher for his career is because when Klay was a little bit younger, he would drive a little bit more to the basket. Not a lot by any means, but, Klay would sometimes drive. You might remember he might drive a little bit more and shoot the floater. He was more inclined to take some more mid-range shots. People forget that he is a good mid-range shooter, but he just, he used to be a great mid-range shooter. Now I've noticed him be a little bit more inconsistent with it. And maybe it's just because he shoots more threes. I don't know. But at least from my memory, he was a better mid-range shooter before the injuries. And now he is still good, but a little bit more inconsistent from mid-range. And when I say mid-range, I'm talking like 15 to 19 feet, right? 15 and 19 or whatever, right? And his absolute prime, right, which is 2014, 2019. People forget how good this guy was, Klay Thompson, in those 386 regular season games, 21.6 points per game, 3.7 rebounds, 2.4 assists, almost 1 steal, 47.1% from the floor, 42.3% from three-point range, and 85.7% from – look at that. 47, 42, 86 were his splits. I mean, the only guy that was putting up production like that as far as shooting, like pure shooters, as far as efficiency, was Steph. There was a time when Klay Thompson was the second best shooter, not only in basketball, but arguably in NBA history. And Klay's the only guy that I've ever seen who, when he got hot back then, was arguably even greater than Steph. Like there were games, even within games themselves, like it would be quarters or a game where I've never seen a guy shoot the three like him when he got hot. Whether you're talking about, that game against the Kings when he had 37 in the second half, 37 in the quarter, or the game 6 in the 2016 Western Conference Finals when he had those 11 threes. People also forget, speaking of the Western Conference Finals, in the 2016 playoffs, Klay Thompson averaged 24 points a game, 24.3 points per game in those 2016 playoffs, 3.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 1.1 steal, 44% shooting overall in those playoffs, and 42% from three-point range. And probably his best series was the one in which he got hurt. People forget, but in those 2019 NBA Finals, he was balling. He was absolutely in fuego. In those 5 games where he went down with the ACL injury, 26 points a game, 4.8 rebounds, 2.4 assists, almost 1 steal, 54.1% shooting from the floor. Get this, 58.5% from three-point range, 24-41 from three-point range. The man hit 24 three-pointers in 5 games. Plus, if I remember correctly, he got hurt in the third quarter? Or was it the fourth quarter of game 5? So this man had nailed 24 three-pointers in really less than 5 completed games. 87.5% from the free throw line. So, yeah, people really, really forget. They forgot how great this player is. And I don't know what it is. You see people always making these comparisons with Steph Curry and Magic Johnson. And, you had some guys say Steph Curry, one of the top 5 scorers since the 90s. And don't get me wrong, like I said, Steph is the greater of the two. Let's not forget how great Klay Thompson is. And it would be very befitting if Klay Thompson is on a championship team without Steph Curry, because I don't like the disrespect that Klay Thompson has received, even by some Warrior fans. This man came back from injuries that 20, 25 years ago ended NBA careers, ended them. He didn't come back from a consecutive ACL rupture and Achilles rupture. He didn't come back from that. It was enough to try to come back from one 20, 25 years ago. And look, if I remember correctly, Antonio McDyess was never the same player after I think he ruptured his Achilles in 2001. I think it was during the preseason. He was never the same with the Knicks. After that, he was never the same player. So the advancements in medicine have been remarkable, but a lot of it has to do with hard, strenuous work, a lot of goddamn pain. And can you imagine the frustration of coming back and rehabbing to the point where you're actually playing, you're actually playing, what I'm trying to say here. When he came back from the ACL injury, if I remember correctly, he was actually to the point where he was playing one-on-one basketball, right? He was playing one-on-one basketball, and he ruptured his Achilles. Do you know how psychologically strong you have to be to come back from that? Because I'm going to tell you something. 99% of people would have quit after that. They'd be like, fuck it. I'm done. I can't go through this process again. But he was determined. And it took him almost 3 calendar years to come back from that. So people call this guy a bum. Look, man. He don't deserve that. And I think I've said this before. Before the injuries, he was the greatest off the ball offensive player and greatest catch and shoot player I've ever seen in my life. But anyway, tell me what you guys think.